Well, you've had some questions come up.
Yeah, so here's one. And this is a really good one. Josh Brown wrote, in your view, are there definite categories of the people of Israel versus the strangers among them versus foreigners who know God versus all the other foreigners? Are there different expectations to these groups? In other words, if you're born a Jew or from the 12 tribes of Israel, is there one set of commandments for you and a different Torah for the stranger, for the one who's not born from Israel? And I think what this gentleman is getting at, and if he's not, this is asked a lot, is about the 7 Noahide laws, which is what the rabbis teach. They teach that the Jews are under one set of commandments in the Torah. They describe it as 613 commandments, a number that's completely made up, that's not in the Torah anywhere. They say the Jews have 613 commandments and the Gentiles only have 7 commandments. Where can these 7 commandments be found? Of course, they're not in the Torah. They're in the Talmud and in the Midrash. They're in the oral law. And I've actually asked this to Chabad rabbis who are going around teaching Gentiles to keep the 7 Noahide laws. I said to them, so how could these Gentiles know these 7 laws? And why don't they know about these 7 laws anywhere in the world except for in the Talmud and the Midrash? Why don't the Gentiles know these laws if they were given to Noah? Noah has descendants. Those descendants remember about the flood all over the world. You have flood stories among the Maya, among, you name it, all over the world, but they don't know about the 7 Noahide laws. That only comes from the oral law. And the way I read the Torah is there's one Torah for the native born and the sojourner. That's the whole point. That's what Isaiah 56 is about. He says, let not the son of the Gentile who joins himself to Yehovah say, Yehovah has surely separated me from his people. You must not say that. Now, it's very interesting, Michael. I was recently speaking in a synagogue on Shavuot, and there was this young girl in the audience. She had just gone through bat mitzvah. She was around 12 years old, and she raised her hand during the Q&A, and she said, I know you do this interfaith dialogue thing with non-Jews, and I've heard about these Christians who keep the Torah. Do you know anything about these people? I was shocked. I'm like, this isn't a Messianic synagogue. This is a real synagogue.
This is a real synagogue.
This is a conservative synagogue. And I asked her, where do you know about that from? And she said, in her Jewish school, they taught her about this. In the Jewish school, they taught her, they said, you guys need to be aware. There's this thing called Jews for Jesus, which is basically a scam to trick Jews into believing in Jesus. This is what they're teaching her in the school. And they said, but there's this other thing that's completely different, which are these, they call them Christians. There are these Christians who live by the Torah, and they're not trying to change us or convince us of anything. They're just trying to live by the Torah. And she wanted to know more about it. She learned about it in school.
Wow.
And I actually asked her, I said, so is your teacher Jewish? And she said, oh yeah, my teacher is a conservative Jew, no different than anybody else.
So this is something that's becoming such an issue that they're actually being taught this in grade school, in a Jewish school.
They're encountering people out in the world who are keeping Torah, who they see in the supermarket with the zitz, as my friend Keith calls them, with the tzitzit, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, what are you guys? Are you Jewish? No, I'm not Jewish. I'm, and so they're explaining it the best they know how. In other words, her teacher clearly doesn't have all the information, but I think it's interesting that this is, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, when I first met a man who described himself as a Messianic Gentile, that was unheard of. Nobody, I used to bring these people over to Friday night dinner at my mother's house, and these were people who believed in Yeshua and kept the Torah, and she would refer to these people as my Christian friends. And I'd try to tell her, no, Mom, they don't consider themselves Christians. And she'd say, do they believe in Jesus? And I'd say, well, they call them Yeshua, then they're Christians, they're Catholics. In her mind, that's what it was. And now we've gotten to the point for my mother's generation, anybody who has anything to do with the New Testament is a Christian, and really a Catholic, to now they're being taught in these Jewish schools that, hey, there are these non-Jews out there who want to keep the Torah and live by the Torah. And they're still calling them Christians, but they're getting more of an understanding. This is a growing phenomenon, Michael. I've met people like this all over the world. God's doing something with these people.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
It's just completely out of the blue. I mean, you're meeting them in the roughest places of South Africa who have revelations, and then you're sent there to decode
China,
this.
The woman says to me, I had a dream, and God appeared to me in the dream and told me I need to keep the Torah. In Beijing, China, the woman doesn't speak a word of English. We're speaking through an interpreter. I mean, this is a God thing. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing it, and this is what Yeshua said, that the world may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And when we live according to his Torah, and when Gentiles live according to the Torah, it actually provokes the Jews to jealousy because most of them don't live according to the Torah. They live according to what they inherited from their forefathers, which is rabbinic Judaism. And the rabbis teach that in order for the Gentiles to have a part in the world to come, they must proclaim that the 7 Noahide laws came from Moses. That is the confession of faith. That is the hakifati, if you please, in Arabic, the utter nonsense that they have come up with, that this is how Gentiles get to enter the world to come, is by confessing before a rabbinic court that the 7 Noahide laws came from Moses, which they didn't. So I guess I am out of luck for the world to come. This is Michael Rood signing off with Nehemiah Gordon.
Confusing Arabic and Hebrew.
Learn more about Yeshua than you have in your entire lifetime of sitting in church from a Karaite Jew.